Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session organized by Business World. So I've been told this is one of the biggest panel, and I think they have only given us 45 minutes. So without much ado, I would start with the discussion. So the topic of our discussion is the changing dynamics of cold chain industry from farm to fork to B2C. So traditionally, the usage of cold chain industry is limited to storage of fresh produce, such as fruits and vegetables. According to Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers data, out of 8,186 cold storages with pallet capacity of 37.4 million, around 83% is only used for storage of fresh produce. And that is why they are closer to farms, processing units, and ports. But now, things are changing quickly. Pandemic has changed our lives for good. The trend started during pandemic has become a new normal. As a consumer, as a customer, our preferences are changing. Our palate preferences are changing. Our shopping basket size has also increased. The normal household refrigerator, the capacity of normal household refrigerator has also increased. Also, India's pharma sector has also positioned itself as a global pharma supply hub. With stricter compliances and regulations in place, the need for healthcare cold chain infra is also increased. And hence, as per the industry experts, the need to move closer to the customer has increased drastically. With this thought, I would like to move to my panel. Today, we have some well-known names from the industry in our panel with different backgrounds such as food, QSR, pharma, cold chain, and related technology. Starting with Mira. So Mira, some studies suggest that share of e-commerce in some of the categories of grocery and FMCG has overtaken modern retail. How do you think this change in customer preferences will change the dynamics of cold chain industry?
Modern trade today is at about 70 billion market share. Online is just under 40 billion, which is 38 billion right now. By year 26, modern trade is expected to grow to 120 billion, and online is expected to grow 4x to about 140 billion. Largely, in the last decade, the online growth has come from consumer electronics. However, in Indian retail, about 66% of market share is of food and groceries. So when we say that online is going to grow almost 4x, a large portion of that is expected to come from food and groceries and fashion and apparel. D2C has been a good lever to grow this and will continue to grow this industry, online industry. They've been growing at a CAGR of 45%, right? Now, speaking specifically of categories, within frozen foods, which is going to be a $20 billion market by 2024, almost equally split between export, HoReCa, and retail. Modern trade is already at a higher percentage. Online is already at a higher percentage than modern trade. At 10%, e-commerce already exceeds the market share. And with the launch of Z-commerce, which is a sub-zero single temperature supply chain for frozen foods, we are expecting to grow the market to almost 30 billion. What we need to understand is that we need to build trust with the customers. They need to be able to expect a certain level of service and quality. So as an entire industry, we need to consolidate the efforts in cold chain to build that customer trust. So largely the growth is coming from food. That's the thesis.
So from e-commerce to Q-commerce to Z-commerce now. I hope we keep on adding more syllables to this. Yeah. Okay. So moving to Mukesh. So what are your thoughts on movement of this temperature sensitive frozen inventory? Do you think there are gaps in this? Or do you think our last mile is kind of fragile and broken as of now?
Thanks, Ashish. Really, it's a very interesting question because everybody knows that last mile delivery is a painful in this coach industry. Because why I'm saying this, if you see like there are 3 or 4 lakhs in terms of distribution. For example, first primary is totally like monitoring by the service provider and the consumer as well, customer as well. Then again storage, then again secondary. But there is a tertiary. For example, what I am saying this, why I am saying this, because there is a phase-wise working like CFA, then super stockist, then distributor, then retailer, then consumer. So till retailer, everybody is in track. Everybody is like visible. But from retailer to the consumer, people are taking in their gunny bags, delivery of the frozen goods. Okay. So what I'm saying ki because there is a lack of awareness, education and training and infra. Why infra? Because at the retail setup, they don't have the frozen infra. What they are doing? They are keeping in a freezer. All most of the retailers is having a 200-liter freezer, and they are putting this freezer out of the shop or whatever, and they are putting there. When the delivery guy is there, they are just keeping in a like a prongo bag or something like that and deliver it. Most of the times, consumer got the product in a refreezing condition. But like you and me from the coach industry can recognize that it's a refreeze product. But as a normal customer, they can't recognize. And that's basically a deformation of texture. Because a lot of fries items, if it's at a thaw, then freeze, then maybe taste gone.
Right. So
Yeah.
we are saying the chain from retailer to the end consumer is broken.
Yeah, because and again, like driver, they don't have much educated. What again, I'm saying that everybody has heard about that word. As a educated person is giving a product to the uneducated driver, and is worth of 20, 30, 25 lakhs of product, and he is driving like anything. He's just playing FM and whatever the songs on a record and driving like anything. They don't bother about the temperature. They set the temperature -18. It's okay.
I think that's a great point. Training and awareness is one of the points which I would like to cover later in the session. So Naresh ji,
Thank you.
so I would like to talk about this gap which Mukesh has mentioned. So as per a NCD report, we have a capacity gap of around 4 metric ton of storage and around 20,000 reefer vehicles, which is huge, I think. So have you felt this huge gap is there, or like
Yes, gap is there. Our company deals with apples, plum, peaches, pears, etc. It's very difficult to get the refrigerated vehicles. And some of the fruits come in the summer season when the temperature is 45 degrees. So till now, the plum peaches used to only come up to Delhi. It was not traveling beyond Delhi. Very small quantity going to Bombay, or people tried by air and everything. Everything has failed. We have tried to move from Delhi to Bangalore, Hyderabad through refrigerated cold chains from the beginning. And often we lose business. We don't do it because we don't get the vehicle. So there is a shortage. There is no doubt on that. Ministry is very right. There a lot of fruit gets wasted, doesn't achieve the value that normally it should have. I have seen peaches coming from abroad in Bombay being sold at 1400 rupees per kilo.
Wow.
But our farmers in Uttarakhand, they will be very lucky if they get 40 rupees per kilo.
oh, that's a
So
huge
the
gap.
gap is so huge. But yes, there is a problem in the availabilities because it is seasonal, it is for 1 month, etc. Who should invest, how much they should invest, etc.
Right.
Those issues are there. That problem very much is there.
So not only last mile, as per your point, I think
Last
only
mile
that first
is
mile is
not so
also
critical. Last mile here, the major movement. Let's say from Uttarakhand to Bangalore to Hyderabad to major cities in the country. At the moment, these are big cities: Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and very quality conscious also. Everything, and they get a lot of imported stuff, which is much superior in quality because the cold chain is maintained there in the throughout. Once you reach it to the, let's say, distribution center of Reliance Fresh in Bangalore, then the time is available for the consumption. 2 days, 3 days, life is there in the fruit. That is not that big a problem. Problem is the major movement from the production center right up to the distribution center.
Thanks a lot, Naresh. Coming to Sanjeev, so as a user of temperature sensitive movements, What do you think is a gap there, and how can we become more customer centric or reach faster to the consumer? I would say.
So glad you asked that question because it's not about the gap that we have to address. We have to address the perception. Unfortunately, and that perception cannot be changed by us who are sitting in this room. The perception has to be bottom up.
Down to line team.
Yeah, the operators
Right.
who are the truck drivers, their perception has to change. We have to come out of the era of being only a cold chain handling industry, which was doing meats and frozen vegetables. We are much beyond that now. And as a manufacturing setup who does more of volumetric products, we do a lot of desserts. Try and explain this to a truck driver to carry a cake from Uttarakhand to Chennai, and you'll see his face. He will never be comfortable taking that thing because he's not used to it. As far as infrastructure is concerned, we have had many discussions earlier also. And again, since we are moving from carrying frozen meats and vegetables, even our infrastructure, it needs to develop in accordance to that. Because even today, a lot of our assets, which are the deployed trucks, they are not in line with what the requirement is, say for a palletized movement. We were discussing earlier, a truck driver can report at your facility. He will be ensuring and he will be very sure in his mind that he's got the best truck, but then you have to reject that because it has the deformed T grating. For him, poor guy, he can't be blamed. Nobody told him T grating is as important as his unit. So I think a training down the line, especially to the drivers, is the most important thing to do. And as far as last mile is concerned, I think I can talk from both supplier side as well as from the buyer side. There is a huge market which I personally feel is for part load, which is not existent as of now. And I think there is a lot which has changed post pandemic. We are all aware of our P&Ls. Gone are the days when we would carry 60, 70, 80 days of inventories. We all work on JITs, but I need 2 tons of load. I can't deploy a 12-ton vehicle. So I think there is a lot which needs to be done. There is a lot which has already been done, but I think there's a long way ahead.
So you mentioned cakes and bread. So how do you take care of damages or shrinkages? Like, because it is something which I can eat as a driver. I can just open the box and eat. So how do you manage that?
So there are a lot of checks and balances that we have put in. One, everything that we dispatch from the plant are palletized. The logs of everything which is handed over are digitized and shared with the customer, including the loading protocol, the pallet numbers, the way it has been loaded, the temperature checks by the driver, and including the photographic evidence. So once it is done, then the integrity is ensured over there.
Okay, thank you. So moving from food to pharma now, Shailesh, with India becoming a global supply hub, with increase of demand of these online market aggregators and doorstep deliveries, do you think there is a scope for cold chain industry to evolve with respect to pharma?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Ashish and Alok, for having me here today. See, we are, basically for pharmaceutical industry as well. Our challenges are no different than what some of my friends over here have mentioned. It is more or less the same. In fact, the challenge for us is even more at times because the sheer value or the cost of the products, that we move is comparatively much higher than the food or the food products that is being handled by the other people here. But having said that, in the last 8-10 years, if you see, because of a lot of biologics and biopharmaceutical products that have come into the market, and as you said rightly, India being basically turning out to be a global supply chain hub, which means a lot of contract manufacturing would happen here. Definitely, the demand for cold chain, is going to increase over the years, as we see it today. But the similar challenge what we face is, again, because these are the vehicles, if we move, or the warehouses that we store have to be properly validated, calibrated, approved as per US FDA guidelines or maybe European guidelines. Since most of the products that are manufactured in India, I would say about 60 to 70% of it gets actually exported, and maybe 20-30% is consumed locally over here. So over here, the cold chain maintenance is even more critical for us. We just cannot tamper with the temperatures, because eventually if the substandard product goes out to the the hospitals or the chemists and gets administered to the patients, here it's a life-threatening, kind of a risk that we are going to take. So for us, it is even more important, and we at Parazelsus, basically focus on this. We work very closely with healthcare companies, and to ensure that their end-to-end supply chain is managed the way they want it to to be done. So we kind of take a lot of efforts in terms of training our vendors also, be it logistic partners or warehousing partners, in terms of understanding what are the intricacies of supply chain when it comes to pharma. So that is where the lot of efforts need to be done. And as that said by Sanjeev here, again, the education to the drivers or the people at the bottom level handlers is very, very critical. So that's where again is our focus area. We spend a lot of time doing that with our vendor partners.
So have you also felt there is a huge gap in these delivery vehicles, delivery trucks?
Absolutely. In fact, today, pharmaceutical for pharma movements, the kind of vehicles that we want. One, we would always want the vehicles to be less than 5 years old, because after that, the shelf life of the vehicles kind of goes down. But for us, more than that, again, the calibration, validation of the units and how the products have to be handled. So basically, in our case, the driver has to be even more trained. He needs to know exactly how to handle or how to move the shipments. And at the same time, getting the right size of vehicles or the right type of vehicles is also a critical thing for us.
Thanks a lot. So shifting our focus now from users to service providers. So Alok, as you have heard all of our panel members, so we are at a consensus that there is a dire need to move closer to the customer. But I'm sure a cold chain company would also have their own challenges. So what do you think are challenges with respect to infra or setup?
Yeah, thanks, Ashish. I think the panel members here are all primarily from the user side of it, and we come from a background as service providers. The major challenge that we face as a service provider in meeting most of their requirements, whether it is related to line haul or it is related to last mile or it is related to warehousing, I think it's the infra, majorly infra. And obviously, to simplify this, I think we'll break the cold chain into two segments. Like one is the logistic, which is the transportation part of it, and the other is the warehousing, which is the consolidation or aggregation part of it. So when you talk about the Indian scenario, major drivers in the industry or of the cold chain industry so far has been products like potato, products like fruits and vegetables. Only around a decade back did the first revolution happened when CA stores were coming up in a large scale, and when the first of the Asia's largest facility was created of almost around 12,000 metric ton. I think Mr. Naresh Jawa was instrumental in that from Concord, So since then till today, the journey has been good. The infra and the technology that has been brought into India, courtesy the service providers that have invested in it, it remains a capital intensive industry, So with very less amount of support from the government, only if you are attached to some sort of a farm or some sort of processing unit, are you given those subsidies. But the moment you are catering to the larger or to the volume which most of the panel members represent here, I think it's the piecemeal that we are looking at. So when you talk about piecemeal, again, you need cold storages which are closer to the hubs, which are closer to the areas of consumption. So being a capital intensive thing, people have shied away from here. And again, getting a cold room up and running is one aspect, but ensuring that it is running at a full capacity is a big challenge. So the ROIs are taking time, without any subsidy, without much help from the government side. And when you come and talk about the logistic point of view, the challenge remains that almost out of 10 to 12,000 refrigerated vehicles available in India, a handful of people are organized or are having a pan-India presence. very almost 70% of the industry is unorganized, or 80% you would say. They exist as regional players. They're focusing only on those particular markets. They're not growing or going beyond a particular market. So what happens is, obviously, once you invest in a vehicle, you fly a long haul, the return load is becoming a challenge. So because of the diversity that India is all about, the geography that we are blessed with, there are seasons when apples will happen, but it will happen only in north, and it has to travel all the way across. When there's a good poultry season, good hatching season, it happens in south majorly, and it has to cater to the rest of the India. Similarly is the case with frozen peas or peas per se. Uttarakhand and few central places in India manufacture or produces peas. So is in the case of corn. So geography wise, we are so restricted and we are so seasonal that at times the trucker gets stuck between the loading of a cargo, sending it to a destination, and then getting stuck there for the want of return loads. So I think a lot has to be done here. People are bringing in technology, trying to create platforms, trying to go and work in a marketplace. But yes, miles to go, but certainly yes.
One follow-up question, Alok. So as the data suggests, there are more than 8,000 cold storages across the country. So do you think this is the time where consolidation and collaboration should happen in cold chain industry also?
Yeah, I think a company like ours, Mr. Kool, we have a flagship store in NCR, but that doesn't stop us from going across and using the underutilized space. I think this is the right time. People, like-minded people, and asset owners who are running underutilized, who are not able to utilize the capacities that exist with them. I mean, we, or maybe the industry per se, needs to go and collaborate with them. So I think here is a solution that we give to the customer. Like, we are not saying that we have one store in NCR region, but suppose there's a requirement for him in Bangalore or in Chennai or in any part of the country. We scout for the space, we scout for the location in the site, we go closer to the customer, and we try to bridge that gap. And certainly technology is a big enabler with certain ERPs in place and information available across the all channels. We are able to resolve to a certain extent, but this has to be a complete movement. Entire stakeholders have to participate in that. Only that can happen. Otherwise, these capacities which are lying idle, I think it's a waste of economy. It's a waste of capital invested by people. Ultimately, loans taken from the banks. People are unable to repay their EMIs, and what happens is, like, it's a loss to the nation. So I mean, the whole thing boils down to that.
So as you have mentioned technology, I would like to come to the technology man of our panel, Vishnu. So how do you think technology can help cold chain become more customer centric and cost effective?
Thank you, Ashish. So in perspective to the technology that we deal with, where it's called as phase change materials, or PCM. Just to set a context, all of us here, the food products that we are handling, the medium of energy at final consumption is, we are talking about temperature, minus temperature or positive temperature. And in scientific terms, it's called thermal energy. It may come from electricity or it may come from fossil fuel. We are talking about reefer vehicles, you're burning diesel to produce that temperature. In cold warehouses, you're running electricity continuously. But when the power outage happens, you are running the diesel generator to again run the refrigeration unit. So what we enable is thermal energy storage. So so the technology enables you to store energy in the form of, these are chemicals which can store 0 degrees or -20 or -25. So in other words, for laymen, it's ice at different temperatures. Now the purpose of this or the objective that this material can achieve is, one is transportation. Like, say, Sanjeev mentioned about part load shipments. To say ship a pallet load of say ice creams, you do not require a truck. So what do? That is where other materials come in. These are passive materials. This keeps the temperature at -18 for 96 hours, for 100 hours. And the beauty of this is, this materials can be reused. It can be regenerated. So just like ice, after it melts to water, you can freeze it back and reuse it. So circularity also comes in. So if you really, you really can use it, reuse it, and thereby you don't have to keep, your operating cost can be really brought down. During power outages, that is another case where for cold storages, which are running 24/7, 365 days, there are, PCM also plays a role in increasing the thermal efficiency. So, so if it's a -20 cold room, the compressor is running 24 hours. These materials act as a shock absorber. Each time your door opens, you have a heat gushing in, and that load goes into your heat refrigeration unit directly. So that is where, now this is one technology. There are technologies to trace, there are technologies to sense the temperature, but this is something that is in a nascent stage. Today we are in the cold chain space, quite mature, in the pharmaceutical space and the food cold chain. And customers are today aware that 2 to 8 degree requires a different treatment than a -20 or even a 15 to 25, which is largely underestimated, calling it, say, dry and cool. But 15 to 25 degrees Celsius is a mandate FDA compliant, requirement. So 15 to 25 is not just that, that because in India, Gurgaon is not for 15 to 25. Right. So do you have a medium or a storage medium to keep it at 15 to 25? So that is, so yeah, the technologies can change.
Thanks a lot, Vishnu. So I'm sure all my panel members would agree that need of the hour is delivering quality to the customer on time, every time, without much impact on cost or breaking the cold chain cycle. So with this thought, I would like to dig a little deeper. Now, coming to you, Naresh, as per a study, around 25 to 30% of fresh produce goes in waste. How do you suggest reducing that? As you were part of railways and Concord, do you think part truck load movements, PTL movements through railways or Concord or multimodal parks will be helpful?
So we tried when I was in the Concord that we had set up the CS store near Delhi, 12,000 ton capacity. We tried railways also, it did not work. Part load in railway is impossible. The railway has few refrigerated parcel vans. We took one of it to send apples from Delhi to Guwahati. That also flopped. It did not work. There are different challenges, many of them. So my understanding is that refrigerated movement better done through road, point to point, that works best. Regarding the point you mentioned about the 25 to 30% wastage, yes, I think multiple studies have proved that there is so much wastage of fresh produce in the country or to that extent. And if you can get your cold chain right, I won't say 30% will be recovered, but even if it is 5-10%, it is a huge gain for the country.
Direct benefit.
So there is a requirement. You customer sometimes are not ready to pay slightly more, but as the modern retail is coming, as the e-commerce entities are coming, they are willing to pay more for the products which are better quality. And I see hope in that. Once that grows, the wastages and other quality, etc., will all wastage will reduce, quality should.
Okay, so everyone is advocating PTL part truck load here. So Sanjeev, so do you think this PTL movement would help you to reach your end user faster and would also take care of, like, my question is how will you take care of quality there, like in PTL movements? Let's say as of now, you must be shipping in bulk. Now we are talking about shipping like 50 kgs, 100 kgs or 500 kgs. So would this impact cost and quality?
Talking about first cost, depends what you think cost is. Is cost of acquisition a cost or cost in use a cost? Even if I have to pay, and I'm purely coming from a user perspective, even if I have to pay a little higher cost for taking services of a PTL, I can always build it in my COGS, right? It's a cost which I'm aware of. If I'm using full truckloads and carrying inventories which are not going to get utilized in next 30 days, 60 days, 70 days, those are termites that eat the P&L and we don't even see them. I think post-pandemic, cost are something which is directly seen, and nobody wants to work on huge inventories. Everybody is working on GITs, and in fact, as a matter of fact, again, from manufacturing perspective, if there's a requirement of 4 metric tons, why am I pushed to get a 12 metric ton freezing truck?
Agreed.
It's something which impacts, because what has happened earlier when some of the companies started doing PTL, it was they would collect the load and then it would get stopped somewhere. They would wait for more consignment to come in and then only move. That impacts my production cycles. My lines are not going to wait just because one raw material has not moved in. So I think cost is a very subjective thing. It's something which can easily be worked out. As far as quality is concerned, yes, there are challenges, especially the segment that we work in, wherein it's basically deserts, because deserts can definitely carry smell from other products which are there in the container. So I think we will have to look at this as something which possibly at some point of time, I know it was being done, like the oil carrying containers, they have compartments of 5 KL, 5 KL, 4 KL and all. You can buy one container, one compartment of that. Can somebody come up with the differential or different compartment in a truck? Wherein I buy a compartment. I don't buy 2 pallet load. I buy whatever, that 8 pallet space or 6 pallet space. But that compartment is dedicated to me. I know for sure that nothing else is going to come in. You store frozen fish along with a frozen cake and the cake is gone. So yes, there are challenges in there, but I think there has to be an out-of-box solution, because definitely there is a requirement of PTL in the country.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the insight. So one more point which like everyone in the panel spoke about was training and awareness of down to line team. So my question is from you, Mira. So do you think training our down to line team of picker, packers, delivery boys or bikers can help us reduce our wastages and decrease our costs?
So Ashish, I feel that in the age where we are, we need to leverage technology. Just relying, we need to move away from people dependency to technology and processes. What we do at FroGo is we have a control tower operations where we are using IoT temperature loggers to monitor real-time temperature across the movement of the product. So instead of saying that the driver needs to be educated, that of course that needs to be there, they need to be aware of what they are doing. We need to move away from that and make it dummy proof and make sure that we are leveraging existing technology. This is already there in the market. We need to use it, and this will actually benefit us in terms of cost benefits are huge, because then in real time, before any damage is done to the product, you can track it, you can fix whatever is going wrong on the ground, and you can action upon it. But outside of that, what this will create is build customer trust on the entire category, on the reliability of a cold chain, which will in turn grow the entire market and the industry. So I think technology is the answer.
Great. So I think down the line, few years down the line, there would be some course for training our bikers, delivery boys, and pickers also. Hoping for that. So coming to Shailesh, so you have seen both sides of the business. Okay. So I would like to know, like, how can a cold chain warehousing or logistics become more agile, more faster, more transparent, and quicker?
See, basically, I mean, as my friends here have just mentioned, even we, again, I will reiterate what I said before. We also have similar challenges, whether whether solutions in part loads are available or not available, whether the usage of technology is there or not there. We keep looking out for such innovative solutions from the market all the time. But yeah, as I said, I mean, for us, in fact, the part load may not help much, because not many drugs or vaccines are kind of compatible to each other. So the pharmaceutical companies would still like to maintain the privacy of their products. So what is important for us, that the challenge is, even if these technologies do come, assuming that let's be very positive in looking at it, that let these technologies do come. but are companies today willing to shell out the price for buying these technologies? So for us as an aggregator company, that has been our major challenge. We keep welcoming the idea of having solutions, but we also face the challenge that the companies who wish to avail it, they are not willing to kind of pay that extra amount that is needed. So for us, what is important is, even if those solutions come, how equipped are we, or how equipped is the trade to pay for those additional technologies that will come along in the near future.
I have one follow-up question from you. So I've heard somewhere that even our normal medicine have to be moved between 15 to 25 degrees going forward. There is a new government regulation which is coming in.
Yes.
So do you think that will also like give a boost to the entire cold chain ecosystem and also the technology which you were mentioning about?
Very much. In fact, that is something would be coming any moment. In fact, that has been started getting implemented by many of the pharma companies. They keep coming for looking to shift from the ambient to what we call as CRT, that is controlled room temperature. So most of the medicines that we currently consume we will reach a stage where there won't be any dry truck movement. It will be more of 15 to 20, and then the secondary would be 2 to 8. So in this scenario also, we will need more and more refrigerated vehicles. But in this case, refrigerated vehicles which are good enough to meet the pharma standards. It's because we also face the same challenge. Like when movements happen from one city to the other, there being lack of return loads, our vehicles kind of get stuck. And for us, the other double whammy is that we can't even bring back food. I have to wait for another pharma load to kind of get generated. So that solution, if we can probably educate people that not look at cost and then make sure that you just ensure that the quality is maintained, then more and more trucks, I mean, like Alok said, people would be interested in investing in infra. Today, people are holding themselves back because of the cost pressure.
Right. Okay. So thanks a lot, Shailesh. So Vishnu, now there are 2 points. Is there some technology which can reduce our cost, such as energy cost? B, like a new regulation is coming that the normal medicine has to be moved between 15 to 25 degrees. So is there a solution? Is there a technology through which we can move this medicine to the end customer also?
Well, yeah, technology is available. Like we were just mentioning before the session started, but how would you have to also sensitize the end last mile, the personnel who is handling that. So technology, yes, you can foolproof it. However, you still need to have the training done. And there is technology, for example, the insulin today, insulin needs to be maintained at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Once the insulin pen injection, the first injection you take, then in small fine letters, it's written, place it in cool, dry temperature. How many of us know about it? Even the end user don't know. So does a doctor educate them? So it's a chain, and I think certain technologies and change takes time. We can only speed up the time by talking more about it and discussing and disseminating this information.
I think that's the irony, guys. So our technology person is saying that training is important, and our labor extensive team is saying technology is important. So I think the blend of both is required. That is the thing. Yeah. Correct. So Alok, I think there is a paradigm shift needed in how cold chain industry operates. Okay, so we have to think beyond the traditional cold storages to something like integrated solution or end-to-end fulfillment. So what do you propose in this?
Well, what I understand from my panel members, like they have a problem, but they have a solution also. But unfortunately, when you talk about solution, it's always attached to a cost and to certain investments. So what has happened of late, all the COVID scenario and the typical scenario that the logistic industry has performed, good or bad, but in particular cold chain, I mean, the asset heavy companies have actually shied away and now further shying away from investing in new inventories. So when you talk about, I hear them out, I hear part load is a big necessity or need of the hour when you are supporting Q-commerce or you're migrating from an e-commerce platform or from e-commerce to Q-commerce, So, and so in the case of whether it is pharmaceutical also, I mean, you actually in today's time got to reach out to the doorstep of the customer. And integration is one part, and ensuring the supply chain is another challenge. And obviously, going closer to the customer is another ask, you know. So whereas we all work on our work in our own silos, you know, like I mean, if I talk about my company, I'll be concerned about the setting of the assets that we own, you know, and then later understanding the problem of the industry per se. But until and unless there is some drive, some support given to the industry, whether it is to support the pharma or to support the QSR segment or the fruits and vegetables. So I think, yes, to a large extent, things are being done at the farmers level. So where you've gone closer to the farm, you have created facilities to, you know, process, pack, and maintain temperatures at that level, and then transport the fresh produce virtually the doorstep of the consumer. But when you talk about the other segment, which is the minuscule of what we see in the fruits and vegetable, which is the frozen food, you know. So frozen food or dairy per se, which is frozen dairy, I mean cheese or ice creams, they see a big challenge, you know. From our perspective, if I talk about creating a multi-temp refrigerated van, you know, to cater to all of these requirements, as Sanjeev mentioned, like I mean, have a compartment in a container. So I create a module, I create a container, and I have 3 partitions to it, you know. One maybe to carry ice creams of companies from Mukesh, and another compartment of veg, non-veg IQF products, and maybe a third compartment of pharma, and a fourth maybe of fruits and vegetable. And that's how we do that. But the problem is that already, if you talk about a 32-footer vehicle or a 32-foot container, which is at the moment being used very heavily in the road transportation of refrigerated material, is a 32-footer. But the moment you take this, I mean, this vehicle from one point to the other, the challenges of getting the backhaul, you know. So, I mean, I am only certain about X movement to a Y city movement, but from Y, what is the return that I'm going to get? So, if I'm going to get a dry load as a return, will that justify the capital cost that I've already invested in a vehicle? A normal dry vehicle of 32 feet might cost me around 22-25 lakhs. But when I talk about a refrigerated vehicle, it's just the double the amount, you know. So that's where we're trying to bridge the gap. You know, we're trying to bring in some sort of technology, some sort of again, you came late, yeah. So some sort of technology and some sort of integration of awareness, you know. I mean, where you come up with a platform that we are trying to develop and have all the information ready in that platform. So by the time I'm planning a vehicle from X location to Y location, the people around that location is aware of certain vehicle reaching there, just the way how train or how railways done it. I mean, that's the best example that we see. We can certainly start with some corridors, develop the hub and spoke arrangements there. And in the morning session that we had, where we had people from railways also, we did mention about the interest of the cold chain industry also using multimodal as means of transportation to pass on the economies or benefits of the pricing to the end customer also. Because certainly one, you get a costly, you get a cheaper bet on with using railways. So cost is one that you will gain on, and TAT is obviously another big aspect. You are no more dependent on the traffic jams, or you're not, pitting on that. You have a set of operations in place and technology in place, and you are reaching the customer faster. So again, some bit of infra fine tuning and some bit of support from the government, which can double up the efforts being already put in by the people who are running the cold chain as a service provider, you know. So yes, I think,
Sorry to interrupt you. As data suggests, there is a huge gap of approximately 20,000 reefer vehicles. And you're saying like companies are shying away to go capital extensive. So do you think like nowadays, I think Airbus is also leasing out their 50 crore, 70 crore carriers to these companies. Do you think now it's the time for these Tatas and Ashok Leyland to give trucks on lease?
Yeah, and certainly, I think that'll be a welcome sign. I mean, if they really want to sell their inventories, Tata and Ashok Leyland, they came up with the option wherein they were giving a turnkey solution. I mean, otherwise, in normal scenario, a cold chain operator ends up with three vendors. You know, they buy the chassis from one OEM, they get the container developed by another OEM, and the reefer unit by another OEM. So there are three partners or three vendors which develop or give a final product. But in case of Tata's and Ashok Leyland's of the world, especially catering to the Indian market, they came up with this idea and they did this job. You know, they were manufacturing or they were giving a single window solution to the users or the buyers who wanted to dwell in this segment. So obviously, if this is done not on the basis of just selling of the inventory, but on a lease basis, I think it will be a welcome sign. You know, I mean, that will ensure that they are also able to sell and utilize the fleet that they're manufacturing. And on the other side, they'll be kind of a operator neutral. So, I mean, whether it is Mr. Kool or Ravi Integrated operating out of Delhi and somebody else takes it up from Bangalore or somebody else takes it up from Mumbai, a common platform of the OEM and fair to all to use it and to book their cargo. That's something that is a food for thought.
Great. Thanks to the entire panel for this. So I'll just one by one, I'll just go through the panel and would ask them to sum up in like 3-4 lines. Shailesh, starting with you.
So I think what Alok just mentioned would definitely be a welcome idea if this has to happen, because for us, the challenge is, getting the good quality vehicles, what we keep looking for. So if I think, perhaps when you decide to take such initiatives, you should be keeping the pharma sector in mind, try to understand, what is it that our industry wants, and maybe a certain fleet of vehicles which can probably exclusively be used for pharma and biopharma, kind of a product movement, rather than the focus only being on the food side. I think that is something probably on the sidelines, we should be discussing about. Yeah. Thank you anyways for having me here. Thank you.
Over to you, Vishnu.
So I think we should look at long-term sustainability of business and also the sustainability of environment. Energy crisis is real. Climate change is real. We did not even touch upon that subject, but
carbon footprint.
yes,
and all, correct.
and our raw material is energy for all of this what we're speaking. And I guess sustainability and profitability can go along is something that is the last note that I would like to leave.
I think I heard Alok. I would like to correct one thing is that I was never proposing a multi-temperature vehicle. It is something that is too complicated, too complex. I think the need of the hour is to get a 2-compartment or a 3-compartment frozen vehicle. I have a need for full truckload, I'll take 3 compartments. I have need for 1, I'll take 1. That makes life simpler also for the logistic provider as well as for the buyer. I understand once you move towards a multi-temperature, then it becomes a major challenge getting different types of loads. But even today, if you are getting return loads, nothing changes in that scenario. It's just that my requirement is fulfilled, your truck is utilized. Yes, there is a give and take on that thing, but then it's a win-win situation for both. So it's a requirement, and I think industry should definitely look at that.
So as I mentioned, that the demand for the refrigerated vehicle for the fresh produce is very high, and today, unfortunately, availability is very less, and therefore we are forced to move a lot of our produce in the ambient temperature. And since the modern retail has come and they are insisting on that, I think the industry has to also prepare itself that they move along with the requirements of the customer, that they want better quality, temperature controlled vehicle. They must, I don't know how they do their finance and check on the P&L. But I would say this demand is going to grow hugely in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, because more and more organized players are coming in the fresh produce. Earlier, it was a disintegrated market. Farmer was sending the produce to the mandi, and mandi there used to be multiple RTRs, commission agent, and they would sell, go to retail, etc. No more, I would say substantial part is now shifted to the organized players. So they are able to improve the efficiency. Just to give you an example, we move apple from Himachal to Bangalore. Our losses, which we were talking 25 to 30% for general, maybe for apple it is less, it is 10, 12% for other. We moved it less than 1% losses. So I am sure there are many other players who will be coming, and the demand for this is going to grow. So industry should prepare itself.
As Alok has shared that there are challenges in the coach industry in terms of like as you said, long haul vehicle there is no any return load. Secondly is the part load, and third is the shortages of vehicle. And as a industry, like as a professional, we need to contribute, and also we need to contribute to find out the way. Like that is okay. Service provider is duty that he provide the vehicle, but how we can like suggest how we can find out the
I
solution.
think for that we would need a 4-5 hour of session.
Yeah, actually, no, actually, there's reason behind that because we are also using the vehicle of Mr. Kool. But right now, as I said, that there's no any like return load from the most of the locations. So rightly, we are paying for the to and fro. But that is again, no, most of the industries are not paying. They are basically on that per trip basis or something like that. And again, yeah, part load, basically like a multi-time vehicle is basically, yeah, it's a good solution. But again, there's a challenge in terms of carrying the goods. Somehow there's a mix of goods like some fish or some other meat items are there. There is a, every company is having their own KPIs and SOPs. So then again, there's a challenge. And yeah, shortages of vehicle, uh, definitely government will take some step. They will give some subsidy in terms of like how they can go for it. Because as Shailesh has shared, most of the customers don't want vehicle more than 5 years old. I am one of them. Okay, then again, these are challenges. So that's my point.
So if I just zoom out and look at the problem of the industry from a bird eye view, instead of solving the supply, if we increase the demand, if we build the customer trust, demand is going to go up. If we ensure that the medicines are delivered correctly, or if the cakes make it to the customers exactly how they need to be, if the apples are crisp when the customer receives them, if the ice cream is not melted when the customer gets it, the entire industry is going to grow. And if the demand goes up, the supply will make its way to it. And instead of focusing on cost, let's focus on the customer experience and how we are servicing our customers. I think that is the first step to solve for the whole industry.
Thank you. I think a few takeaways for me or for us from the industry perspective. The technology is doing its bit. I think we're all graduating and we're all moving towards the latest technology which is available. But more than that, yes, what we can as a society in large can contribute to the world, to the globe that we all hail from. And obviously sustainability and ensuring a reduction in of the carbon footprints. So technology, other than the energy that we use, I think there are ways, there are means people are coming up with solutions to come out of some alternatives to the fuel that we use in the vehicles that we drive. So CNG is one option that has already been used, but the refrigerated units are still being run with the help of fuel. So again, that is not able to do that by kind of it's unable to make its own mark. And then thirdly is the awareness part of it, training part of it, which is a major chunk that by far by far as India is concerned, we have both kind of segments here, educated and uneducated is reasonably reducing, with the gap that existed, like there used to be some 40% educated population and the 60% used to be uneducated. Today it's the other way around. I think very few of them are uneducated, or at least 10th or 7th or 8th pass. So where do we get drivers from? So mostly it's not the segment which is somewhat ignored or not considered as part of the integral chain or cold chain or even the supply chain that we all drive. We are all operating from air-conditioned cabins, but we forget the guy who's actually at the helm of the affairs, but he's driving the economy. So I think awareness to that level, taking care of those drivers, taking care of training the laborers, making your supply chain more mechanical than manual intervention is stopped. Because cold chain, whether it is related to pharma or it is related to food supply, I think the more the manual intervention, the more the chances of cold chain breakage is there. So that needs to come in. So yes, robotics, AI, ML, all that is playing its respective part. And as drones have come in for the deliveries, I think there are robots that we seen some gentlemen coming up with the presentation yesterday for the dark store picking and packing, where they already have come up with the solution of robotics and all. So yes, I think a long way to go, but nevertheless, the road is quite visible, and we are all going to be heading towards that.
Thanks a lot, Alok, for the beautiful summary. Before calling it a day, I would also like to sum it up. So, as per a Indian Cold Chain Industry Outlook 2024 report, Indian cold chain industry is expected to grow at a CAGR of 16%. And by 2024, it would be a $36 billion industry. So that's huge. So key drivers would be growth of e-commerce and Q-commerce and Z-commerce, increase in D2C movements, shifting focus from export to domestic consumption market as the customer is becoming more demanding and quality conscious, rapid growth of pharma movements. And hence, I think this is the time as a cold chain industry, we need to shift from production market to the consumption market, from producers to customers, from traditional storage to hub and spoke model, and from farm to fork B2C. Thanks a lot. Thanks, my amazing audience, for your patience. Thanks to the panel for this insightful discussion. And thank you, Business World, for giving us the opportunity.